Hello everyone, and welcome to lesson 6.1, Points on the Coordinate Plane. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the different pieces and parts of the coordinate plane, and then we're going to show how to find points on the coordinate plane. So, to get started, there are 7 parts to the coordinate plane. The first 2 parts are the x and y axis. The x-axis for us runs from left to right across the x-axis. That is this piece right here. The horizontal line running through is the x-axis. And likewise, we have the y-axis running up and down. Now, sometimes people get these 2 axes confused. One of the things that was always taught to me was that y touches the sky. So if you can't remember which axis goes where, which label goes where, maybe this little phrase, y touches the sky, will really help you guys out. Okay, the next thing that we have to understand about the coordinate plane is that each little space over on our graph paper that the axis touches is a different value. On the x-axis, we count up 1 number each point. If we're going to the left, then we count down and we get all of our negative numbers. Okay? With the y-axis, as we go higher, the numbers go up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. As we get lower, the numbers go into negatives as well. Now, this is important because when we create our graphs, we need to not only label the axis, but we also need to label the numbers on the axis so things are evenly spaced apart and we know where everything is. Now, once we have everything kind of set up and labeled, and we see where our numbers are, where our positives are, where our negatives are, we need to talk about our 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 begins in the top right-hand corner. And if we take a look, when I look at my values for quadrant 1, I can see that on the x-axis, all the x values are positive. I can see on the y-axis, all the y values are positive. And that's nice because then we know that any number in quadrant 1 is going to have a positive x value and a positive y value. Moving to the left, I get quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, I can see that x values are negative while y values are positive. So knowing that is super helpful. Right? It's just a little difference in a different part of the graph. And so what we can see is that as we move around the graph, the values for x and the values for y change. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative, but what's nice is that they're all grouped together. And in quadrant 3, as we showed, they're both negative. And then finishing off in quadrant 4, we have that the x values are positive and the y values are negative. And so now we have created most of our graph. The last thing on the coordinate plane that we do need to talk about is this very centerpiece. We've talked about the axes, we've talked about the 4 quadrants going around and how they're labeled. That point in the center there is the point 0, 0. That point 0, 0 is called the origin, and it's called the origin because that's where we start. When we start trying to find points, we start counting from the origin. When we start trying to graph lines, we will graph lines beginning at the origin. And so that is basically our starting point for the entire graph. From there, we can go out in our directions. We can go out into our quadrants, and everything is fine, but everything is based off starting at that center point. Okay, so let's take a look at an example really quick of a point that we might have. Right, so we could be given a point here that's called 3, 4. Right, any location on the coordinate plane is described by this notation here, where we have two numbers in a parenthesis separated by a comma. This is what we call a point. That point tells us where we need to go on our x-axis for our x values, and then which way we need to go for our y value. And all we have to do is follow those steps. We're going to start with the first number, which is 3. Then we're going to go to the location on the y-axis that's 4. And even though it's not actually on the y-axis, we go in that direction. Let's discuss this point. So 3, 4 tells me that if I start, and I'm going to use like a bright lime green here. If I start at my origin, I need to go to 3, or where 3 is on the x-axis. So I go all the way over to 3. After that, we see that we have a 4 as a y value, and from the point that I've already created, all I have to do is go up 1, 2, 3, 4, make a big old dot, and that is my point 3, 4. Because it's 3 over and it's 4 up at the same time. If we notice, we pay attention to what we've done before, both the numbers 3 and 4 are positive, and so that lets me know that we are in quadrant 1. They match. Now, if that didn't make complete sense, what we're going to do as we slide screens, we're just going to work 5 examples, and we're going to talk about how to find these points on a coordinate plane. So, first thing I want to do is I want to just label all of my numbers, right? Just so that way all of my points have different letters associated with them. And then we have to go and create our coordinate plane. Label our axis for the x-axis and the y-axis. We're going to make our little tick marks here that show where I'm counting. Same thing all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And down, we do that as well. And to the left, -2, -3, -4. That's -5. All right, so now that we've created our coordinate plane, right, we do this first every time. We make sure we get those numbers in there. We're going to start with number 1. Now, number 1 is 0, 5. So first thing we got to remember is that 0 is where we're going on the x, 5 is where we're going on the y. We always start at the origin. This point tells me I'm going 0 spaces on the x. So that just means I stay where I'm at. From there, I go up 5 spots because positive 5 is in the positive direction, and that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4. I got to go up 1 spot higher than what the graph was created for. That's fine. We can fix that. Just draw our graph a little higher, put a 5 up there. We're good. And we get to that spot. That spot is 0, 5, and that spot is what we will call point A. Just label it so we can keep them separated. All right, moving on to 2. Number 2, remember, -1 is where we're going on our x, and then -5 is where we're going with the y. So we start, and with the x, we move over 1 spot to -1, and then we go down 5 spots following the y-axis, so down 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, we're going to have to extend that graph a little bit more. So started left 1, then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, make a dot, and that's where B is. Okay, moving on to C. Again with C, we got 3 for our X and -2 for our Y. So starting at our origin, we go to 3 spots on the X-axis, and then -2 means to go down 2, following the Y, so down 1, down 2, make a big dot, and there's point C. Point D is -4, 6, so starting at our origin, we're going to go left 4 spots, and then up 6 spots. That's going to completely go off of our graph, so that's just going to be way, way, way high up here somewhere. That's where D is going to be. And then 5 is going to be 2, 0. And that means starting at our origin, we go to the right 2 spots, but up and down no spots. And now we've got our last point. Okay, so hopefully by the time we've done all 5 of these problems, you've kind of gotten in the groove of how to plot points. First, we started our origin, then we follow our X, and then we follow our Y, and then that combination of positions going left or right first, following the X, up or down second, following the Y, will get us to our point location every time. Hopefully this has helped you guys out, but if not, as always, please reach out to me and let me know.